Welcome to another edition of Off the Cup on the Bluff with your host, Dean Franklin. That's me, right here in Memphis and Shelby County. I have two guests tonight. We're working on trying to get Aundrea back on. Before I bring them on, there's a few things I'd like to go over you with. Um, now, I don't have any sponsors, so I'm doing a little bit of free advertising, and plan on doing that for several small businesses. If you like, I mean, really good beef, chicken, pork, there's a place in Olive Branch called Adobe Ranch. They have 100% Angus beef. It's aged 28 days. And I don't care what you put on their hamburgers, you can taste the flavor of the meat all the way through it. Pasture raised Angus beef, Berkshire pork, raw local honey, and farm fresh eggs. They get their chicken from a place down in Mississippi called Riley Family Farms. And I would like to do something with them as well. But as you can see, their farm hours, the farm store hours are Tuesday through Saturday, Monday through Friday, 10 to 5, and Saturday, 9 to 2. They also have a guy that comes out that has fresh fish, shrimp, royal reds, all different kinds of fish. Really great stuff. We have Kathy Harms and Aundrea Gomez on tonight, and they're with the Tennessee fair elections. Let me bring this up if I can remember how to do it. There we go. This is their website. They started this website. They started Tennessee Fair Elections .org in 2023, and they work really hard to try to make Tennessee, to have fair elections. It's not easy. Their work is not easy, and it's a constant battle between them and, as we all know, our fine Tennessee State House. So, without further ado, let me bring on Kathy, and we're still waiting on Aundrea. Hey, Kathy, how's it going?
Great. How are you doing? Thank you for having us tonight.
Absolutely. I wonder, if I need to resend her the link. I thought she was going to try to get back on. But we'll talk. We'll talk here for a few minutes. Tell us about the Tennessee fair elections.
Tennessee fair elections was begun with by Aundrea. I had already been involved working with election integrity myself, and since 2020, really since the 2020 election, and then in roughly 2022, Aundrea was working with Russ Vogt at the time with Citizens for Renewing America, and they also were working with the Election Integrity Network, which was begun by Cleta Mitchell, who's an election attorney of over 20 years. Some people know her from way back in the Tea Party days, where she defended a lot of the those nonprofits that couldn't get their nonprofit status approved by Lois Lerner. And then she was also very involved in the 2020 election, and actually had to leave her own law practice because of the attacks that came on anyone who challenged any of the results. I don't know if I think I'm still there. Anyways, at any rate, she began the Election Integrity Network in
Okay.
through the Conservative Partnership Institute, which is Jim Dement. And when that was begun, Russ said, this would really be a great thing for us to participate, because the backbone of this was to start coalitions in states where
Right.
states could join together. And even though we were out here doing our thing in Tennessee, it was really great because we were able then to maximize the effort and leverage what we knew was happening in Tennessee. And we came to realize many of our concerns were also at the national level. So that's kind of how it began. And the focus of it is to grow a coalition from throughout the state in every county, and to enable to help election workers in their counties in election commissions to help them, come alongside of them. This isn't just a gotcha kind of you
Right.
know organization. It's to help with best practices that we know across the country.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of
That's
information. Y'all done a lot, haven't you?
Yes, we have. It's been a lot, and like I said, we've partnered with so many people across the country and learned a lot from states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida, Georgia, Arizona. And so I think it was very helpful because I think so many people thought, well, we're in Tennessee and nothing bad happens in Tennessee. Well, right? I mean,
Right,
that's what we
right.
all like to believe at any rate. However, it's not quite that simple. What we were seeing is the things that got a lot of these other states into trouble were things that we were doing and moving toward in the state of Tennessee.
Right. I mean, like we were talking about earlier, when we first before we started the program. Uh, I mean, I've always voted. I've always voted Republican.
Mhm,
Even whenever I was in the Air Force, I joined the Air Force in '86 and absentee balloted then. And yeah, I really didn't get so much involved into the politics until 2020,
mhm,
whenever all that started, and that's probably when a lot of other people got started. Uh, and then really didn't hit hard into it until getting involved in my local county GOP and really seeing, and that was in
mhm.
2024. So, we were coming up on just a regular presidential election. Nothing,
Correct.
nothing so much going on in the city and state, county, and everything. So I really didn't have any idea until we rolled around to this year, to the end of 25 and to the first of this year, and talking about somebody's eyes being wide open now. I mean,
Mhm,
with pulling people off the ballots and
mhm,
uh, just, I mean, we've got one uh, contested, we've got one contested program. I mean, one contested uh, race. It's for the
mhm,
Republican sheriff's, the race for the Republican. I mean, the sheriff's race for with the Republicans, and that's we just got two people running.
mhm, mhm.
So
Well, go ahead.
everyone
Sorry.
else is everyone else is unopposed until
Mhm,
August
mhm.
for the August primaries. So
Well, I
that's
think a
that's
lot of people didn't get too involved until after 2020. Cleta will tell you herself, a few people, there were just a handful of people that were pretty lonely that were ever even talking about election integrity. She goes back to talking about this into the early 2000s. And so she saw what was coming down the road, but most people weren't awake until after 2020, like you were saying. It isn't just the election.
right,
And one thing I would say Cleta is fond of saying is that our entire liberty depends on the consent of the governed. And that consent comes through free and fair elections. And so, what does that really mean? You have to first know who are the governed. That's your voters. Who are the eligible voters in your community, in your state, in your counties? Who are they? If you don't have just eligible voters voting, then you don't have the consent of the governed because you have people who are not eligible and are really not qualified to be a part of the process, and they're being brought into the process. And
right,
the second part of the consent of the governed, I would say, is the process itself. If the process itself is flawed, then you're not going to get to the result, which is the third part, which is accuracy and security and transparency. And you need all three of those parts to have elections that people are confident about. And I
right.
think that that's what we're seeing today when people bring questions forward in our own coalition, is they're concerned about those.
Well, yeah, I mean, because the very first thing that after 2020, after the elections in 2020, uh, I mean, it concerned voters were wondering if they went to the polls, if it mattered, how, if their vote really mattered, if their vote was really getting tabulated, if it was being counted, if sometime at 3 a.m. in the morning there wasn't a massive vote dump
Mhm,
for the other candidate or whatever. I mean, I did all kinds of looking around as much as I could do with not being that skilled or knowledgeable about everything. But I mean, I was trying to find out, was my vote counted? And how can I go about finding out if my vote actually counted, going through a machine?
Mhm. Right. Right, and the machines, they became the star of the show, unfortunately, um, and I think they became the, ground zero for a lot of the concerns, and, a lot of those concerns are genuine because the reality is they're a black box. We don't have transparency when it comes to the machines, and then that led us to say, "Okay, what are the parts of this election that really we should address?" And so Tennessee Fair Elections has worked over the last several years trying to put together cogent solutions that would address and restore confidence because these are real problems and they're identified across this country as real problems. Election integrity concerns rate one of the highest ratings. They're usually number one or two at the lowest of
Right.
concerns that Americans have, and that's including the state of Tennessee. Tennessee is much the same as the rest of the country. It doesn't matter if, it's sort of like the schools. Oh, my school's okay. It's the school down the street that's the problem. People began to widen that out and say, you know what, I really don't understand how this works. I am more confused than I used to be, and I don't understand why. Why
Right.
is it all of a sudden got to be so confusing in order to cast a ballot?
Well, I mean, it's because they changed the language up. It's like every other day they instead of doing something for the people, it. I mean, my wife uh, throws no bones about it. I mean, she says it feels like we're being screwed all the time. I mean, every day they change something up. I mean, it's just like with the recent primaries and everything like that. I mean, they waited till I think it was just before people were able to pull ballots that they changed this up in December to where you couldn't have voted in any Democrat, independent, you know, this, that, and
Mhm.
the other at the. And I was thinking, no, why didn't they do this maybe after the 2024 elections or after these elections?
Yes.
I
Mhm.
mean, if you're going to introduce something new, it's like they already had plans to kick people out.
Well, the thing of it is and some of the political pieces of it, we're pretty nonpartisan in that. But what we're not, which I don't think is partisan, is what is the process and how does it work and
Right.
why is it changed so often and what are the major areas that people are concerned about? Because for a candidate to even get a fair shake, why are we constantly changing the way we do elections? And one of the false senses of security in the state of Tennessee that's often used by the people in leadership is this scorecard that was done by the Heritage Organization, which I don't think will be done again. And it just picked some metrics that it thought would be great, but they never scratched below the surface on the metrics to say how are they actually enforced? How are this actually administered? Is it working the way the law says? And Tennessee was voted 2 years in a row to be number 1 on that scorecard, but the state that was number 1 before us in 2020, mind you, was Georgia. So that tells you that a scorecard like that isn't gonna tell you the tale. What's gonna tell you the tale is how are these processes working in Tennessee, around the country? Why are there vulnerabilities? Why are people concerned? And what does that mean to the individual voter? Because if you don't believe that your vote counts, you're not gonna cast that vote, and that's gonna reduce voter participation, which is really unfortunate.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's been, I think Shelby County, maybe not Shelby County as a whole, but Memphis as a whole has been under Democrat rule for close to 4 decades. I
Mhm,
mean, it's hard to get any uh, Republicans, conservative Republicans, elected in Memphis and Shelby County.
mhm,
Uh, we've got several people on the Memphis City Council who claim to be Republican, and it's supposed to be. I mean, I think the city council is supposed to be, nonpartisan,
Mhm.
as is the sheriff's race and this, that, and the other. But if you've never been to Memphis or Shelby County and seen everything that goes on,
Mhm.
so you have,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
because I'm sure you hear about it, uh, it's it's not nonpartisan. I mean, they're and I know you know about the MSCS, the school board, what all's going on with it right now. I mean, it's almost uh, uh, national headlines with everything that's going on.
Mhm. Right.
Uh,
So, then that leads us back to the question, how can you effectually make change if you aren't confident in the process to make that happen?
right.
How do you know that your candidate can get elected? And then that goes back to the process because there's an old saying, he who writes the who he who writes the rules has an advantage in the contest. So who's writing the rules and what are they? And
right.
are some of our rules are good, some of them are outdated, some of them need to be changed because they're not good. And some of them are taking us on the same trajectory that we saw in Georgia, in Maricopa County, Arizona, in Pennsylvania, and in Michigan. And we have a lot of concerns about those. So as a coalition, we've tried to address those.
So these we're going to be showing five of the bills that y'all worked on, and all five of them were killed in the General Assembly. Have
Mhm.
y'all, as a coalition, have y'all been able to get any kind of traction in the General Assembly since you started in 23?
Since we started, we had a few minor, I would say, victories. We came across something. Not everything has to do with the machines.
Right.
I was doing a presentation on data mining. Data is like money. You know
Right.
that. Your people are being hacked every day. Well, we found that on our college campuses, without the permission of the student or the parents, our kids that were attending those schools was having their data mined through a program called NSLVE. It was the National Student Learning Voter Education, and these quote quote unquote nonpartisan nonprofits would come in and say, "We'll run this program for you," and that sounds really great to the administrator of the college or the university. But the kicker was they had to sign over all the data, and the data then for these kids was going to not a nonpartisan, it was going to Catalyst, which is part of the Democrat apparatus. And so
Okay.
then they could politically groom the students. And you wonder why besides what they teach in some of these schools, you wonder how
Right.
your kids learn how to vote the way they vote. Well, they would have pizza parties and they would send them flyers. Well, when somebody was in our audience, was a Board of Regents member, he took that up with us and we were able to pass legislation and stop that practice in the state of Tennessee. And Representative Tim Rudd from Rutherford County ran that bill, and we were very proud of that. And then last year, Representative Tim Hill ran a piece of legislation mandating. Now, this is one that's in current events today. We found out a few years ago by one of our volunteers, nobody was talking about this. We found out that our driver's license, to get a driver's license in the state of Tennessee, you have to show documentary proof of citizenship, okay, your birth certificate or
Right.
something, in order to get a driver's license. If you are here and you are not from the United States, you have to also show that you have a legal presence here.
Right.
And so you get what's called a temporary marking on your driver's license. Well, nobody was talking about that until one of our volunteers found out about it. And so we started talking to Representative Jody Barrett from Dixon County and about what can we do to ensure that that is identified because we have voter ID, but if you're
Right.
presenting a driver's license that says temporary, somebody should flag that because that's a very strong indication you're not a citizen. Well, what ended up happening was we've tried and tried to get that changed. And finally, last year, Representative Barrett gave that bill, I think, to Representative Lamberth, and it went through, but it's not going to take effect until 2028. But last year, in order to more clearly identify, but last year, Representative Tim Hill had legislation passed that said we have to train the poll workers to look at the driver's license and if it says temporary, that they can only get a provisional ballot. The problem is only using the driver's license is that just excuse me.
No, you're fine.
is that you can have your driver's license for 8 years. And some of that some people become a citizen in those 8 years. Actual
Right.
friends of had, but they don't go get their driver's license changed. So you give them what's called a provisional ballot. You're not telling them they can't vote, but at least challenge it. And then they have so many days to come in and prove that they really are a citizen.
Right.
That's common sense, and that was passed last year. So we're very happy about that. It didn't give us everything we wanted, but it gave us something.
Well, yeah. I mean, I did work the polls. I guess for the 2024 elections,
Mhm.
and that was the first time that I'd done that, and it was a great experience. I mean, it
Mhm.
was I, I they asked me if I wanted to work somewhere uh, close to where I lived in one of the precincts close to my house. I said no. I said put me in one of the darkest Democrat areas there is. I said because I want to see I just want to see. I want to know. I want to meet these people where they're at. Uh, and I had a blast doing it. I mean, it was, we had the two, I forget what they're called. One, is- whoever the lady is that's over your group or whatever, and then you got the marshal.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
and then the one beneath her, her helper or whatever, and like I said, I can't remember all these things,
That's okay.
but she worked as hard or harder than anybody else. All of us outworked all of us
Mhm.
in there. I mean, she was one of the nicest. She was the Democrat, you know, and we've all got friends that are Democrats and Republicans and independents and libertarians and but it was just a great experience because uh it was in an all black neighborhood,
Mhm.
and it was everybody that walked through there were as nice as they could be. I mean, the facility was nice. Nobody caused any issues. I mean, everybody stayed their if they were holding political signs and this, that, and the other, they kept their 100, I think it's 100 feet distance.
Mhm.
Uh, and I'm seeing today that a couple of posts on Facebook over the last couple of days or whatever, where that's not happening. I mean, the people that are holding the signs that are representing the candidates are getting in people's faces.
Mm.
They're, I mean, badgering them. They're trying to give them handouts and this, that, and the other. When meeting them in the parking lot, walking
Mhm.
with them and talking to them, trying to sway or whatever. And uh, two people actually got into it. Nothing physical, but I mean, it was a shouting match, and somebody caught it on on camera or whatever on the cell phone. But uh, a lady made a post, and I said that would be a great pod. If I could get a lot of people to watch that particular podcast, then it would be a great podcast with everything that she had to say.
Mhm.
Andrea is trying to get back on.
Oh, good.
Uh, she's trying to. I don't know. She Let's see. Maybe,
She popping in here?
there she is. Let's
There
bring her
you
in.
go.
Hey there.
There she is.
Hi, what I miss? I feel like I missed half the party.
No, you're all good. You're all good. She was just telling us what Kathy was just telling us how the Tennessee fair elections got started and who the previous uh, people were that gave the inspiration for it.
Okay. Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
So let's get to the to the crux of everything, the biz as I call it. Taking us to another screen here. Uh, Now y'all had five bills that you were trying to get pushed through,
Mhm.
and as we said earlier, the Tennessee General Assembly killed all five of them. Now, some of them, as I was reading along, it seemed like some of them did not make it out of the Senate, or are not out. I mean, some of them didn't make it out of the House. Some of them made it out of the House, but were killed in the Senate. Is that correct?
Correct.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know that anything completely made it out of the house.
But at least it
Okay.
made it through subcommittee.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And not a and these bills, some of them have been run for several years. So this wasn't the first time some of these bills have been run. They're just different iterations of these bills.
All right, so you have the the Ballot Transparency Act, restoring voter verifiable ballots, House Bill 0999 and Senate Bill 1028. Tell us about this one.
All right, you want me to go, Kathy?
Sure.
Okay. Well, since at least since 2020, I think you've probably recognized that there are a lot of voters, of American people that are skeptical of the technology that has taken over our elections. And one of the issues that we have with that technology is this reliance on the barcodes that are on our ballots. So we are told that we have this paper ballot, and we are also told that it is voter verifiable. Well, when that ballot prints out after you've made your selections, you might be able to see the candidates that you selected. But when you walk over and you feed your ballot into a tabulator, the tabulator is actually reading a barcode or a QR code. And I don't know about you, but I'm 52 and I have not learned to read the language of barcodes and QR codes. So therefore, I cannot verify that my ballot is being counted and tabulated in a way that matches up with my intent as a voter.
Right.
Okay. So this bill, the proposal of this was to remove those QR/barcodes, which most of, I think our ballots had barcodes here. Other systems use QR codes. That also aligned with the Trump executive order that he gave at the beginning of his of this term. Was that EO 14248 or something like that, was to remove these barcodes from our ballots. We want a ballot that is secure, hand-marked paper, that you see all of the candidates on the ballot, not just your particular selections. We want to see all of the candidates listed on the ballot. We want to be able to mark them, right? And then we want, we can use the tabulators to do a scan of the ballot so that you can get that quick tally. And then we have now a paper artifact, or we would have a paper artifact to be able to go back and do a proper audit of our elections. And that's what that bill intended to do. What did I miss, Kathy?
Yes, it did not. You did a great job. It did not change the tabulator. They, it would still run through a tabulator, but that's sort of like the whole double bookkeeping analysis, where it goes through once and then you hand count to see if it's accurate. And our law, we're supposed to have a voter verifiable paper ballot, which we do not have. We can. It's not voter verifiable if it's being read in a machine. We have 45 counties use something called microvote, and that doesn't have a ballot that is that you can read. It's a cash register tape that you can see. But again, the process of the machine is whatever that is programmed to do. Is what's reading and tabulating whatever you're seeing. It could be something different. We don't know. The question is, we're not saying it's fraud. We're saying it's not verifiable.
Right. I think the last time no, it wasn't the last time. It was time before last. We had like a little. It was almost like a little credit card or something that you stuck into the machine and did your votes or whatever, and it was like a little. It was like a little credit card, and then you put it in the basket and walk out. So that's the one that really. Those are the ones that really made me question. Well, is it going to be counted? And that's the one that I really searched for, because the last time we had we took the paper ballot, scratched all, did all the little deals in, and then fed it into the machine. And so, I think that's what most of Shelby County uses are the machines or whatever that you feed your ballot into.
Yeah, most of them are touch screen, and that was one of the high marks you get on that I talked to you about that heritage scorecard. Paper ballot, check the box. Well, it doesn't
Right.
mean that voter verifiable paper. It's just paper.
Right.
Paper's not all paper. If you're not hand marking your own ballot, then there was a county, Murray County did a hand marked paper ballot in 2024. It was quicker. It's less expensive, and then those machines cost. So we couldn't. There was a technicality on that bill that they wanted to kill it instead of fixing it, and so that had to do with the tabulator, not the ballot itself. But this was not the first time we brought this forward. And we've been told that our Secretary of State has taken the position that he will not support a hand marked paper ballot when the entire country wants a hand marked paper ballot. So
Well, I mean, yeah, 77 million people voted for that, right?
there you go.
I mean, it used to be that way. It was that way. I don't know. I'd have to research, but I mean, there was one time when everything was hand marked ballots and they got them counted in the same day. Now it takes them, I mean, all this modern technology, and it still takes them a week to count.
Well, there's this because the rest of the process is also, as we get into the other bills, you'll see why one of the reasons why it's so difficult to have a hand marked paper ballot. You're going to see in the neighborhood act that Aundrea is going to talk about.
Okay. Here's the HB 0999 with the I didn't go through this whole thing, but I mean, I was looking at some of the different things, the amendment, the summary, the fiscal note, and on that fiscal note, I was looking at, now, are those the prices? Because I mean, I pulled this up, and are they saying this is the cost to go to a paper ballot?
Well, they can come up with a lot of things on the cost. I mean, we never got that far, but I think that they were trying to say that we would have to replace a lot more than what we were talking about. We were talking about not using. Remember, a lot of these machines we're using today are going to come to end of life pretty soon because the government has now forced all these vendors to upgrade their systems. And we're concerned that if we don't get to a hand marked paper ballot pretty quickly, they're going to just go out and buy new machines. And if you want to talk about a fiscal note that's going to blow everybody's ears, it's going to be when they want to replace those machines.
Well, of course.
Shelby County can't even afford to send out postcards for their low propensity voters. How are they going to be able to afford all the new technology?
Oh, I mean, it'll come from somewhere. We just, if we get rid of the Memphis Safe Task Force, then maybe we can afford the new machines, right? Anyway, okay, let's see. The next one is is that the next one? Election Day Empowerment Act, protecting Election Day in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Or did you want to go to the Neighborhood Voting Act? Is that the one that you were talking about?
Yeah, why don't we
either
go
one?
there? Yeah, go there.
All right. Let's see. How's that?
Very good.
This is like the crux of a lot of it.
Okay.
Depends on restoring the in-person precinct-based voting in our state. So I don't know how every single county works, but we do have several counties. Kathy, maybe it's close to 10 now. They keep adding more counties every session that go to a vote center, which is a county-wide location. So if you think about like the very first elections you ever voted in, we don't have to talk about who you voted for because we don't want to age ourselves. But if you go back in time and you think about those elections you voted in previously, you would always go to your local neighborhood precinct, right? You are assigned a precinct, and it was usually close by, could be a school or a community center, something like that. And you would go, and everybody that was voting there was in that precinct. And there was typically just one ballot type, right?
Right.
And so you have precincts all over. And we can actually talk about that last bill that you pulled up for a quick second, because it goes together. We had precincts all over. but you went to your neighborhood precinct. And also back in the day, we didn't have a voting or election season, we had an election day. So it
Right.
made everything very neat, tidy, and clean, right? You went to your precinct, you cast your vote on a secure hand marked paper ballot, and done. You didn't really think anything about it. Well, now we've got in the state of Tennessee counties that are voting in these, what they're calling them, convenience vote centers. And you have to always wonder, who are they convenient for? I don't believe that they're convenient for the voter. I think they're convenient for the government. And that means, but the vote centers they're designed to be able to provide every ballot type in the county at these select locations. So imagine, let's say you have, I'm just going to pick a random number, 45 precincts in a county. And then for early voting and possibly even for election day, you're going to be, instead of at 45 precincts where, your precinct is your closest one, you can now go to 7. So instead of 45 precincts, you're going to be down to 7. You can go to any one of those 7, whatever's most convenient for you. That's what they say. But it's really centralizing the vote and the tabulation of the vote.
Right.
So in order to offer a precinct or a vote center model, you have to have the technology to offer all of those ballots, because you might be standing in line next to a voter that's from the other side of the county, right? And they don't have the same people, the same candidates. They're voting for their local school board and county commission and so forth. So what do you have to have in order to be able to make sure that someone is not going to vote again at a different vote center? You have to have those electronic poll books, right?
Right.
So that they check you in on the electronic poll book, and then they're going to walk you over to your ballot marking device. They're going to program your precinct number. Even though you're not voting in a precinct, they're going to program your precinct number into your ballot marking device, and that's going to pull up the candidates that you're supposed to be voting for. But all of those other people in the vote center are voting in different precincts.
Oh my gosh. I mean, how confusing is that to the poll workers?
Well, they're I don't know if it's confusing to them. I think that this is what they've gotten used to, number one. And as long as they are correctly programming that ballot marking device for your precinct and you get the right ballot, which guess what? Not everybody does get the right ballot when they vote in a vote center, because we know this has happened in counties in recent years where, 4,000 people are given the wrong ballot and they don't know how many people are voting and not knowing that they're actually getting the wrong ballot. So this bill that we're talking about put us back in a position where we're voting in our local neighborhood precinct.
And that's
Well, it does it ties in with everything, because as Kathy said, it's connected to that QR code bill that we just finished talking about.
yes, ma'am.
The reason you need to be in a precinct is because a vote center cannot manage hundreds of ballot types on, if you had if everyone was voting on a secure hand marked paper ballot. That's where the chaos could really come in, is you're going to have hundreds of different ballot.
Whoops. Did she freeze?
She might have. It might be.
She'll probably come right back. Yeah. You have hundreds of different ballot types is what she's saying. And so the best place to be is in the precinct, and for a lot of different reasons. She talked about the electronic poll book. She talked about that whole check-in process, and
Right.
then more and more dependent on the machine to give you the correct ballot type. And so once you're connected by the internet for those electronic poll books, you've got now you're connected to the internet. And so we used to have it so you had a paper book or an offline poll book. People were checked in. You knew where your precinct was. The people in the precinct knew what streets were in their precinct. So the workers understood it. They knew which ballots. There were maybe a couple ballot types, and that was it. And they were able to use all of those. And so that was at the precinct level. And when you get away from that, you're getting into more, well, you talk about cost and you want to talk about that fiscal note. Those electronic poll books aren't free. And we
Right.
just had an election in Texas where the electronic poll books were in one of the counties was programmed incorrectly. And guess how they fixed it? They fixed it remotely. So when we say we're not connected to the internet, we have to be a little careful. And ES&S is one of the big companies that we use as vendors here, and they use their e-poll books. And those were decertified in the state of Texas. So you got to be careful because this is where the layering that you were talking about at the very beginning starts happening. You start first, you get away from the precinct, then you
Right.
have to use this, and then you have to use that. And as Andrea said, there are only a certain amount of counties in Tennessee that have been approved, quote unquote, for vote centers for election day. But virtually every county is using some form of a vote center for early voting, and roughly 67 to 80% of the actual vote happens during early voting. So when you think about it, almost every ballot that's being cast in an election is being cast in a vote center. And then go back to just make it even crazier, when it goes through that tabulator to count it,
Right.
guess what? This precinct's in there, this precinct's in there, this precinct's in there. All these precincts are being piled up with all this paper. And how are you going to audit that? Because in order to get at those ballots, if you wanted to audit your precinct, you'd have to go to every vote center, pull out every ballot type for your precinct, and then count them. And one of the things in our state constitution is that we are supposed to guarantee the purity of the ballot box. And the other thing is that the General Assembly shall make laws to allow people to vote in the precinct in which they reside.
Right.
And to digitize that is not the same thing.
No, no, it's not. I mean, I'm already way confused, and I don't know if I'm confused. Uh, those that are watching this are, I mean, so it's like if they're convenience places or whatever, if that's what they're calling them, and you've got people from all over Shelby
Mhm.
County coming to one, maybe you've got some people coming from Tipton County, in the same, two or three different counties coming to one place.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean,
Well,
if I'm confused, just think about the voter,
Well, it's the precincts that are mixed up, not so much the counties. Every county is still separated. But look at
right?
it this way. I'm running for school board.
Okay,
And I'm in District 2, let's say. This is a hypothetical. How do I campaign if my District 2 is not the polling place where my voters are going to be, but they're going to be scattered all over the county? How do I even campaign? Because now I've got to be in every vote center because they could my and how do you protect the purity and the secrecy of the ballot? There have been situations, and I'll give another one out of Texas, where a guy was running for a certain thing. He was voting in a vote center, and when that ballot was cast, it was the only ballot from his district, and they knew he voted there, so they knew how he voted. So the secrecy of the ballot can be jeopardized in a vote center.
well, I'm old enough to remember when you didn't talk about who you voted for ever. You just voted, uh, and that's somebody had posted something on one of my Facebook pages, and I said, well, that's the good thing about me doing this podcast, because as a local for Shelby County and Memphis,
Mhm.
uh, I'm not picking and choosing the different candidates or whatever. I have to be equal and give, I mean, I don't have to give them equal time, but I mean, I just have to be fair about everything and not push one or the other on podcast. I'm not going to do that. That's why I get to go and vote secretly. Nobody gets the only one that I pushed was Monty. That's the only one that everybody knows that I'm pushing for is Monty, and he's
Yeah,
not
well,
local.
but the whole point is what if they can find out who you voted for? That's the thing with these machines. And I think these things go together. This is like an ecosystem. It's like levers. If you push on one, it's going to impact something else. The minute you take people out of precincts, you get rid of the paper ballot. The minute you get rid of the paper ballot, you're also getting rid of the poll books, and now you're electronically managing poll books. So now you have three different things that were happening that didn't happen in a precinct. People walked in, there were only and there was a finite number of people that were going to come in. So that's the other thing. Where do you think the long lines came from in all these elections now? Because these you can't tell who's going to vote where in a vote
Right.
center. So that vote center over there might have a 2-hour wait, and that vote center across town, nobody's voting in. So the point being, if you have people voting in precincts, and let's say the precinct size is 1,500 people, you know how to staff that.
Right.
You're going to staff it, and you're never going to have a long line. Plus, you can with paper ballots, you're not relying on 4 or 5 machines. You can line up as many places with those little cardboard dividers as you want, and people
Right.
can cast their ballot.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that's the way that's the way me and my wife vote. I mean, give us give us the paper ballot with the. I guess they all still have barcodes or QR codes on them or this, that, and the other. Once you stick them into the machine, but
Well, those are that's because that's the only option you have.
right.
You have and people don't like those touch screen machines. They say they press and Shelby County had a big problem,
Oh
I
yeah.
think 24. I think they weren't they giving him Dunkin' Donuts swizzle sticks or something to press it
Yes. Yes.
because because when they pressed it, it didn't come up. Somebody else's name came up. They're not putting
Sometimes.
yeah, and so and when that happens, if the poll watcher or the poll worker doesn't see it and it get that ballot gets cast, it's too bad, so sad. You
Right,
can't
and
pull it
that was
out.
one of the things that I mean, I wasn't taking the ballot. I was making sure people stuck their ballot in. It went in okay, and this, that, and the other. The machine on their way out, and I was like, before you stick that in the machine, before you put it in the machine, look over your votes, make sure everything's done right, because once you stick it in there, it's done. You can't go back and change it. Uh, maybe they could, uh, but they wouldn't know because they've
Mm,
already stuck it in the machine.
right,
So
and
so
yes, and we don't do 100% hand counts, and there's no way to know. Like you say, they've already stuck it in the machine. It's because when you're at home and you hit print, you
mhm,
know that whatever was on your computer that you were looking at is gonna get printed.
right.
Most people think like that. They don't think, "Oh, I hit print. I better double check that it printed that."
Right, right. Yeah, that reminds me of a I know this is silly and we're big Friends watchers or whatever, but the time that Rachel printed out her resume and it had a typo in it and she said, "Do you think it's on all of them?"
Oh, wow. Wow.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's on all of them.
Wow,
Not j
it is. Yeah, and so that was those are like 3 of the bills, and the election day, we wanted to get back there. All of these were in the Trump EO. So we're not talking about things that Trump himself didn't want. And the
right.
whole thing about election day was we've gone to this, what we call election season, where
I
people can
know.
vote long periods of time instead of voting on election day. Well, that talk about jacking up the cost. You've got to staff those vote centers or wherever they're voting for all of those days. If you got back down to, and we only wanted to get back to 8 days, cut
Right,
it a little bit more than in half,
right,
and couldn't get there. Could not get there from here. They didn't want to listen to this one at all. I don't even know if this one got a second in committee, but it was one of those things they just don't want to talk about it. It isn't as though we don't have absentee voting for people who are handicapped or in nursing homes or traveling. You know, we understand all of those. But did you know that we have a permanent voter absentee ballot that can get mailed in, and it starts at age 60? And the last time I looked, age is not a disability. And so that means these people are on a permanent absentee voting list. If they want, they can just mail in their ballots. So we're like, you know what? Let's do what the president is saying. Let's try to restore the election day, get back to it. It would cost less. Everything we've proposed in the long term should be costing the state less, and it's
right,
pragmatic and it's auditable.
right. I mean, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, until you said something, because I was asked to be a poll worker again this year. Now, I mean, I have a small business, so there's not a, I mean, it's not like I could do. Let's see, what was the first day of voting? The 15th. That was a what, Wednesday?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yep. Well,
Tuesday or Wednesday.
day.
Yeah. So you got 15 days. It's not a total of 15 days, but I mean it's somewhere from the 15th to the 30th, correct?
It ends. Yeah, it's coming up. The deadline's coming up for early voting.
Right. And
It's
so yeah, they've got to pay all these people for all these days, and it's not a bad paycheck
Mhm.
to go through the class and then to do it. I mean, I did it for the presidential election. It was not a bad, it was like 12, 14 hours, whatever that I was gone. But I mean, it wasn't bad and I got to meet some really cool people. So, but to have to pay, you know,
Mhm.
early voting, the day of voting, the early voting in July for August primaries, August general, August primaries for November. It's wow. Somebody can make it.
Well, the Secretary of State wouldn't support this one either. I mean, none of all the bureau. The thing is here, what we're beginning to see a trend in is the executive branch is running the legislative branch, and that's backwards. The boss of the Secretary of State is supposed to be the General Assembly, and the General Assembly is supposed to be the ones that are looking at these things. And even though citizen groups have been active, very few legislators are really taking a strong interest in these bills. And we've had some very good legislators, though, that have really done yeoman's work this in these last 5 years, trying to make things more secure. And we're very grateful to all of them.
Right, right. So let's see the next. Let me get over here to. I believe this is the next one. Only citizens.
Oh, no, you would think this one would have been a no-brainer. There's a program called it's called the SAFE system. It's run through the Department of Homeland Security. And what
Okay.
it is, it allows states to run their voter rolls through their system. Remember we talked about the Department of Safety and the driver's license, and
Right.
sometimes people don't update those. So that's what I would call dirty data because it could be old. But when you go through the Department of Homeland Security, you can get that information that minute, the status of a person's immigration status, because if they're applying for benefits, they know. But so you know whether or not they're a citizen. It's not
Right.
all that you get out of that, though. And Harmy, right now that this is being contested at the national level because Harmeet Dillon, the at the AG office, has asked that everybody submit their state voter rolls. You can find out they found over 350,000 dead people on the very few states that have already submitted them. It
Right.
also tells you citizenship status. All right, so there's a lot, and it tells people who have died, people who've moved, people who are duplicates. You can see all this when they run them through the system. Well,
Right.
years ago, this used to have to pay for every single person that you ran. You had to have only the state could do it, not the counties were not allowed. And it took a while. So now since Donald Trump has been made president, he changed that. And over a year ago, last April, this whole SAFE system changed that said any county election officials, you're at your county level, not just your state level, can run these through the SAFE system. And the reason it was important was because this is a federal issue where once somebody's on the voter rolls, it's much more difficult to get them off the voter rolls. So this would have given the counties the ability to say, here are all of our applicants, people who have applied to be on the voter rolls. Let us run them before we put them on to make sure that they are citizens, right?
Right. Right.
All right. We said, you know what? This is a good thing. Well, a county tried to do it. So what did the Department of Homeland Security? You have to have this thing called an agreement with the Department of Homeland Security. And so the Department of Homeland Security said, well, the state already has an agreement. So they contacted the state and said, why don't you just let them use your agreement? Why should that county have to get a new one? Well, that just raised the red flag, and the county turned around and got a letter from the state coordinator of elections office that said, you can't use that system. You have to have the permission of the General Assembly. Well, the federal law didn't say you had to get permission from the General Assembly, but our state said you had to have permission. So this bill was put forward to say, make it available. Give them permission to do this at the county level. They can
Right.
they can run them before, they can run their voter rolls and check to make sure that they're clean, because it's hard work to keep your voter rolls clean, to run down the deceased. Well, all of that's in there, right? And they would
Right.
really make it easy for the county. This couldn't get passed. They could not get passed. And the testimony on this one was pretty interesting, because we have spoken to the people who changed this. David Jennings was at the Department of Homeland Security. And so to get around this, the state said they passed a different bill, and they said in 2028, well, we're going to create this secure portal so the counties can do this. Well, we called the Department of Homeland Security and said, do we need to create a secure portal? And you know what the answer back to me was? Kathy, do you think we send this stuff out not on a secure portal? All that the county has to do is on an Excel spreadsheet, put in the names, we tell them how to send it, and then we send them back the answer. So now the state passed a law, I think it's $80,000 or something it's going to cost them to create this secure portal that we do not need. And we cannot do it until when? 2028, where they could have been doing this for the past year. And so we're in a new election cycle. They could have run these through
Right.
for the last year, but we've chosen not to. So we wouldn't give our counties permission to find a better way to keep their voter rolls clean. And Harmeet Dillon was interviewed this Sunday, and that's when she said, because a lot of states have refused to give the voter rolls to her, and they have found out of the handful, one of the states that did comply was the state of Tennessee. They did get them run. And totally, they found all of these dead people and non-citizens. 20,000 have been referred to ICE. Well, guess what? We can't find out the information in the state of Tennessee with a public records request. What we wanted to know, okay, if we've run our voter rolls through, what would you find out? We'd
Right.
like to know what counties had problems. Did we not have any problems? I'd be happy if we didn't have any problems. That would be terrific. But we were refused a special records request, and even Judicial Watch on our behalf, contacted the state, and they still so far have refused. And this is part of list roll maintenance, and the same federal law that makes it hard to get them off also says that these are the kinds of things that should be public information, but not in the state of Tennessee. So we
I sit here and listen to you and Aundrea, and I watch the Patriot Punk Network, and I'm baffled that, I mean, I can't believe that I'm still I mean, well, I am conservative, but a Republican, because we have a Republican supermajority in Nashville, and you think that they would be working for the people. I also follow Tennessee Firearms Association with Richard Archie and John Harris and everything that they're doing. And it, I feel like we're living in a blue state, not a red state. It's not even, it doesn't even feel purple. It feels like it's blue. Passing the June, being family, being a family month instead of the Pride Month or whatever. Well, what does that do for the state? What does that do for the state of Tennessee? I mean, Tennessee residents. What does that do? Well, it's not. It's just you're. I don't know. It's not doing anything for us, and they're not doing anything for us with the Second Amendment, with all these voter registration things, and I just It looks like they work harder to work against the Tennesseans, the people that employ them, than they do
Mhm.
anything else.
Well, everybody in the state likes to talk about being Trump country, right? We're Trump country, which, whether or not you like this current president or not, what that's supposed to mean is we're conservative
Hmm.
because he's a conservative populist for the people. Going back to remember what we started with the consent of the governed. These are the things that this president has advocated for over a year since he was reelected, and we haven't implemented any of it. Did you lose me? There we go.
No, yeah, if just for a second, and Andrea said she's back, but I still don't see her.
I think she said she's in the backstage or in someplace. She's here
Aye.
somewhere. But at any rate, but you can see that if we truly, truly are what we say we are, and like you said, a super majority, this
Right.
isn't this isn't this these are not hard things to do.
No, it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like they're working for us. I mean, I being new to a lot of this stuff and seeing things. I mean, y'all are opening my eyes, chasing them are opening my eyes. It's just it's I these five bills, like you said, should have been no brainers, especially a couple of them that would have been like, yeah, okay, let's enact that one today.
Oh, well, we
Uh,
haven't the best one yet.
oh boy. All right. I guess that would be the is that
51.
the
Yes,
Residency Integrity Act? All
yes.
right. Well, let's get to that one then.
And that would kind of like bring us back full circle. Remember I said the consent of the governed? Who are the governed? Who are the people that are the governed? That's the eligible voter, right?
Right.
Well, this bill, a lot of discussion went around this bill last year because military votes overseas. That's part
Right.
of it's called UOCAVA, Uniform Overseas Citizens Voting Act. All right. It's a big mouthful. And it has two groups of people in it, the military, and it has people who live abroad. Some people are living abroad for school, some for work, some are traveling, and they can't be here for their election, right?
Right.
Well, they're allowed to vote absentee. Last year, we looked at this bill, and a person who is now the Assistant Secretary for Elections at the Department of Homeland Security worked on this bill with us, but couldn't get it passed to say, ask for documentary proof of citizenship, because this is the one application you can ask that of because it goes through the Department of War.
Right.
Well, wasn't going to happen. So this year, it was narrowed down. Representative Michelle Renault worked again on this bill. She worked so hard on this bill to say, listen, military is over here. Military, we're not touching. But if you're an overseas civilian, we have a loophole in our law in the state of Tennessee that says if you have never lived here, never ever, never lived here, but your parents might have had a home here, you
Right.
can vote here if you're overseas. Now, think about this. You could have been born in Texas, gone overseas, and your parents had one time had a house in Tennessee, and now you're overseas. You can get a ballot here, and you can vote. And it was like, well, this is a no-brainer. We want to just our state constitution says you have to be a resident of the state to vote here. Our
Right.
law says that we have laws that say this is the residency requirement to vote here. So all this bill did was to say to a citizen living overseas that if you want to vote here, you have to have residency. It didn't pass. It did not pass, and let me tell you, this was an interesting story because the Kleenex came out with the sob story that, "What if I was a child of a missionary and the missionary lived overseas and I never lived here?" Well, okay, what if this? What if that? But if that's the way we're gonna pass legislation is based on what somebody might have done, and then we create a whole subclass of people, but the people who are in the state have to meet the residency requirement. If I have to meet the residency requirement, why doesn't the person who lives overseas have to meet the residency requirement? How do I know what they know about me? they're being allowed to vote for your sheriff. They're being allowed to vote for your school board and your county commission, as well as federal, who's your state rep, who's your senator, who's
Right.
your governor. They're being allowed to vote, and they've never lived in your state. Now, does that even make sense to you? And we have a constitution that says you have to be a resident. Well, the state of North Carolina was sued and they lost. So a letter was written by the organization that sued them, and that letter was given to Representative Renault, who gave it to the a subcommittee, and they passed. I think they passed it out of the subcommittee then, but then it went to the Senate, and the sob stories and the Kleenex came out again. What if? What if? Well, guess what? The state of Virginia is now being sued for the same thing. There are 2 other states currently being sued for the same thing. This is not even common sense. These elections, you know this, we were just talking. Your county commissioner, your school board, your sheriff are usually decided very, very small percentages, right?
Right.
Sometimes 2 or 3 votes. If you have people that are living overseas and there are signs up, and we have pictures of them in London, in the subway, if you're an American citizen, let us show you how to vote in America. These people have no connection. They are impacting your taxes. They're impacting who's protecting you as a sheriff. They're impacting what your children are being taught in the schools and the debt of your county. So we tried getting this passed, couldn't get it out of the Senate, just died in the Senate. So again, these are not crazy ideas. Did any of these say get rid of a machine?
No.
Except for the paper ballot. We didn't say get rid of those scanners. We didn't say do a lot of things. We're saying let's get back to common sense. And that one won the prize this year.
Oh, well, I guess so. I mean, uh, and who specifically is going to check to see if someone working overseas, if their parents or their grandparents or whoever actually lived in the state of Tennessee? I mean, we know how well they look at things. I mean, they just like, uh, you know, they couldn't find out whose cocaine it was in the White House. Really, really. Uh, so I mean, how so you could have somebody from California who's way a purple-haired liberal, and if you follow Senator Brent Taylor, he loves his liberal fans. Uh, but I mean, so they
Mhm.
could actually vote in the Tennessee
If they live overseas.
if they live overseas and have never lived in Tennessee.
Mhm. Exactly right. And
Okay,
they knew that there were states being sued when they refused to pass this. And no sooner was the ink dry on the no, you're not getting this done, when Virginia, a lawsuit, the Republican National Committee and an organization called Restoring Integrity and Trust in Elections, they're suing the state of Virginia. And guess what? What kind of an issue did I say this was? A constitutional issue, right? Guess what they're going to repeal this year? Our right of standing for a constitutional issue. I think it was, is it SB 1958? And I think that it passed. I think it went through the Senate already. It was the one that said you cannot, a citizen no longer has right of standing.
oh,
With,
in the court to sue the state. Yes,
yes.
yes.
Well,
No,
with,
it passed.
yeah, well, here you have a constitutional issue with residency. And now that's going to muddy the water here. And and why they passed that, I don't know, because they said you have to show you have harm, that you were damaged somehow in
Right.
order to. All right, well, guess what? The Supreme Court just sided with a candidate in Illinois called the Bost case because he sued because they changed the rules on his election. They said, well, you can't prove you were harmed, that you would have won or you would have lost. He took it all the way to the Supreme Court. You know what the Supreme Court said? You have standing.
Well, see, I mean, while we were sitting there talking about it, I was thinking, okay, what if somebody was their parents were here illegally, they were born here. Their parents never got citizenship. They were born here, but now they're working overseas.
Mhm.
They're not even legal to vote, and they're going to
Mhm.
be voting in our elections.
Well, you should read Peter Schweizer's new book called Invisible Coup. And it is all of that subject where there is this whole birth tourism, it's called, where they'll have a baby here
Right,
and they're in China. They take the kid to China. The kid's a citizen though. They're estimating there's going to be millions of these that are going to be eligible to vote. That's why this went to the Supreme Court for the birthright citizenship, because it's an industry. It's called, there's a name for it. It's called birthright tourism. So it's happening. Looking to see if, yep, I have the book is sitting right here. It's called The Invisible Coup by Peter Schweitzer.
you're going to have to email that to me.
Yep, there it is, right there. Excellent book, and I recommend people read it. This is important, is because citizens, and we have the SAVE Act now languishing in the Senate
Yep,
that passed the House so many times. These are all common sense issues, and the American people want people that are going to govern them in the state of Tennessee that understand that. And if they're not going to fight for it, we shouldn't be electing them, because that's not going to give us the consent to the govern, which we talked about at the very beginning.
right, right. Wow. It just sometimes ignorance is bliss, and I mean, and 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 that was one of the posts that I made last week. I think is once you see, you can't unsee anything. I mean,
Mm,
we have been lied to. I think it was in 2022 we found out some people were saying that we'd been lied to for the last 70 years. Well, here it is 2026, and we've been
mhm.
lied to for a lot longer than that. I mean, going back to the 1800s. I mean, it's just uh it's just mind-boggling that the things that we've been told are just so untrue.
Well, that's where citizens, what is the answer to all of this? I think that our vice president said it last week. The answer to the frustration is to get involved. The answer
Right,
to the frustration is to vote. The answer to the frustration is contact your representatives and explain to them why you want, in a good way. You don't have to be mean. You can be polite and be right at the same time,
right,
but get involved. This was designed to be citizen government. It was never designed to be delegated authority and never look back and let them go
right,
on autopilot. We've seen the damage of that. So I think that it's a bitter pill for many of them to have us involved again. They would rather we go back to sleep after 2020. They thought we would be memory hold and we would never
right,
come back. But what happened? We have people involved in healthcare. We have people now involved in elections. We have people involved in so many aspects in education that people weren't involved before, and that's a good thing.
oh,
Because
absolutely.
it's a very good thing, because
I
Ben
mean,
Franklin said, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it."
yeah, it's a lot of people, and you're seeing it. A lot of people are starting to wake up, and it's they can't. I still hear a lot of different things or whatever, and people tell me things, and I'm like going, slow down. Okay, my brain can't handle that much information that quick, and there's even my wife says the same thing. She said if some of these people were to actually be hit and with all of this stuff that's gone on just since 2020, when they find out that it's true, we really do need some mental institutions opening up because they're going to lose their mind. uh I don't know. Let me There's a couple of people that Sherry Pyron, don't you?
Yes, oh, yes. Mhm.
Yes. One of her comment was, she said, and then all the different types are commingled in the tabulator, and how do
Mhm.
you audit that once
Mhm.
everything's thrown in the tabulator. Uh, Mike Parsons says until we have paper ballots and on-site tabulation at the polling place in plain view, there's no way to assure the tabulation is not rigged.
Mhm. Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, and I
and
understand somebody else is saying that the Save America Act is a Trojan horse for some kind of ID. We already have real ID. The Save America Act, whoever, there is somebody out there, and there was a person in Florida, and I know a lot of people in Florida, and this person is, I think, an attorney running around telling everybody that the Save America Act is some kind of Trojan horse to somehow get a hold of all of our identification. No, that is not what it is. It's the very first principle of the US Citizens Election Bill of Rights that's on our website. It says only citizens should vote in our elections in any manner. And if you don't have some kind of identification at the time of your application to vote, we're not talking about just voter ID. We're talking about when you apply and register to vote. That's where this is really the most impactful, is that when somebody registers to vote, they must have documentary proof of citizenship. Identification at the poll can be a number of things. It can be your driver's license. It doesn't have to be real ID. It doesn't have to be that. But people who are on our voter rolls, once they're run through SAVE and we know that they're citizens, they're all set. It's the people who cannot produce documentary proof of citizenship. And so I'm kind of like all done with people who don't know, get involved and
Right.
speak at a high level as if they know. Michael Lee has been, he has been a dogged advocate, and he is what we need. He's Mr. Smith who went to Washington fighting for the Save America Act. And all it really does, it makes sure that we can use that SAVE system and run our voter rolls. That becomes a mandate. It makes sure that people have identification when they register to vote and they're proving that they're a citizen, and that they show identification at the polls. I was talking to somebody from Judicial Watch who just came back from Hungary, and he was an observer in their elections. They voted on it one day. They had Sunday. Everybody had it off. They had to have ID. They showed it. They filled out a hand marked paper ballot, and they did a hand count, and they didn't have any problems. And so, before we tear our hair out as about Trojan horses, we better start thinking of the impact of when you have all these millions of people overseas that are going to say that they're citizens and that they can vote in our, and we don't have to, they don't have to prove it. So I
Right.
think we need to kind of dial that one back a little bit and say, really, where is the pressure point when we've had a border that's been open for 4 years?
Right. Right. Yeah. That Hungary thing was kind of interesting. If everything being said about it is true,
Mhm.
uh, speaking of Trojan horses, the guy that won, from what just from what I've heard, received money and donations and things like that from would be opponents and things like that, but because of the way he ran his campaign, uh, and won, he came back out and said, "Now we've done it the right way," and this, that, and the other. I mean, I hear different things, and uh,
I guess you have to see how he actually governs.
right,
But right now, Hungary is one of the few countries that is still safe, that
right,
has protected their culture, protected their borders,
yep,
and I don't think that's too much to ask in the United States.
absolutely not, and yeah, I've gotten to the point to where I'm just about not America first anymore. I'm just about America only until we can get our stuff straight. Uh, uh, I mean, Trump said it in his first term.
Mhm.
We've helped so many people out, and nobody has paid us any money for any of that stuff. I mean,
Mhm.
if we were to collect the bill, America would be out of debt.
Mhm. Right.
So,
One way people can really get involved and get educated, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody when I talk about this idea that people are spreading about the Trojan horse. Please go to our website, read the US Citizens Election Bill of Rights. That was written by people like you and me from all over this country. Their input was taken. They were asked, what is the most important thing to save our country on elections? And they came up with this draft of, it's called the US Citizens Election Bill of Rights. The first one's about only US citizens should ever vote in our election. It's about making sure that our voter rolls are clean and we don't have ineligible dead people voting and all kinds of crazy things happening. Returning to precinct voting on election day. No more ad hoc, every willy nilly mail in ballots anymore. Really tighten that up. making sure that these overseas people are more vetted before they cast a ballot in our elections, making sure that we have good audits, if that our elections are actually accurate. That's the goal, is to have an accurate election. So that means you have to be able to um, you have to be able to canvass those and certify those ballots, that they match, that the amount of ballots cast match the amount of eligible voters, and also get involved, become a poll watcher, become a poll worker, find out what's going on in your county. You can get trained. Tennessee Fair Elections has a training. It's on video. If you want to be a poll watcher, or if you want to go to your county election commission office and sign up and apply to be a poll worker. They're always looking for workers. Do that.
And they're
It's a great way to get involved.
and they're looking for a lot. I mean, a lot of Republican poll workers, people that vote Republican in Shelby County. It's I think
Well,
whenever I was asked to do it this time, but I'm doing something a little different this year with the podcast.
mhm.
Uh, they they needed, I think, 200 Republican poll workers, poll watchers, and
Well,
they only had like 4 at the time, or something like a 6 Republicans.
yeah. Well, I think that is because a lot of the left, like Organized Tennessee and other places, some of these other groups do pay people to do this,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
and we're all volunteers.
Right, right.
So, it's a listen, it's our if you want, we're looking at what's gonna happen to our kids and our grandkids. We wanna leave this country in better shape than what we found it, and the only way to do that is to be an engaged citizen. There's so many ways you can be engaged, whether it's in elections, whether it's in running for office yourself.
Right.
Um, we need more people that, wanna be engaged in the process. And you may
Absolutely.
just yeah, you may just be a speed bump and keep something worse from happening.
Yeah, people ask me all the time, "Why don't you run? Why don't you run for something in Memphis or Shelby County or whatever?" And I said, I don't know. I've got a little bit of." I said, "I think I found my calling with this." I said, "Because I can help, uh, bring attention to certain things that are going on in Memphis and Shelby County.
Mhm,
I've got a few people that can. I can't do the deep dives that I would like to do, but I've got a couple of people that sit in committee meetings and the county commission meetings, the Memphis City Council meetings. They're retired and they can do that. And one particular guy, he doesn't care who he calls out; he calls them all out. It doesn't matter if you're on the right, left, or in the center. He calls them all out, and I mean, he discovers a lot of money that
mhm,
goes missing. I mean, just uh, you know, our biggest deal right now is the Memphis City School
mhm,
MSCS right now. That's our biggest deal because uh, they one particular situation, they were going to buy, or they purchased a building for a new uh, where they were going to hold all their offices and everything else like that. They were able to get into that building for $5 million.
mhm,
They or $6 million. They got into it for $6 million. They did
mhm.
$34 million worth of upgrades and then didn't do anything with it and sold it to a former MSCS board member for $5 million.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, the school board lost $35 million in that deal. It's there's so much corruption in Memphis. It's crazy, and I wished I had the time to do the deep dives, but I do have people that can throw me those little bones every once in a while that I can bring the attention to.
Well, you have some great people also in Shelby County. I know quite a few of them. They're hard workers, they're volunteers, they're willing to roll up their sleeves. They've been at this for years, some of them. And they're the unsung heroes of keeping
Right.
our country and keeping our communities. So we applaud the work that they do, and we're very, very grateful for all of the volunteers across the state of Tennessee that have helped us on elections, and then others in things like education and healthcare and all the other myriad of ways that if the government would just do what God intended it to do, and only protect us
Right.
and let us run our not get involved in business, not get involved in our families. Those are all things that God intended us to oversee on our own.
Right.
So, but I think we're little, the churches are stepping up even too. So we just pray for God to bless our country, that we return to the principles that made us great, and God bless America and God bless Tennessee.
Absolutely. Kathy, I appreciate you. I'm sorry Andrea couldn't be with us as much as she was.
Well, you'll
She
have to have her on her own. How's
I
that?
know I can do that.
We
Like I
do that
said, I mean,
with, too much of both of us.
do what now?
Too much of two of us.
Well, hey, if Chase can do it, maybe I can. I don't know.
You
Uh,
can. We are grateful for the work that you do. Thank you so much.
well, absolutely. Like I said, I'm having a blast doing this. I mean, because I'm learning as well. Uh, and it just shows to me that I hate reading, but if 2020 and 2024 and now forward have taught me anything, it's the research, the reading, and finding the truths for myself. Uh, because no, you can't trust somebody. There was something you can't trust what somebody's saying. I think it was on Cowboy Logic on Real America's Voice. We watch that on Saturdays, and you have to, regardless of what someone says and how much you trust them, you still need to check them,
Mhm.
because even if they mean well, they could be misspeaking about something.
Right.
And so that's what I'm trying to do with all of this. And one of the other things that I was gonna say earlier, you mentioned Vice President Vance. Uh, we were watching him the other day, and I'm so tired of government people saying, government assistance and government paid stuff and this, that, and the other, whatever. The government doesn't pay for anything. It's taxpayer.
Mhm.
JD Vance said taxpayer, this is coming from this is taxpayers stuff that we're spending, and
Mhm.
we got to get a control, we got to get control over taxpayers money.
Well, that's right, and you're gonna be accountable, because that, theft is theft when it comes down to it, and if it's I'll leave it at that, but, remember, don't whenever a government says they're gonna be temporary, remember the income tax was gonna be temporary too.
Oh
So there
yeah.
we
Yeah, and it only started out at like 3%, right? It
Right,
was 3% of your wages, and it was temporary.
right.
Uh, yeah. So, well, Kathy, other than TennesseeFairElections.org that I've got posted up there, where else can you be found?
I think you should go to, I would give this reference to electionintegritynetwork.org, the
Okay.
electionintegritynetwork.org. That's the national organization that has all the state coalitions that are involved. There are working groups on there for people to get educated in things like voter rolls and how to clean voter rolls. What are the laws about voter rolls? About what is it about precincts? These are experts from across the country. How do you do audits? How do you make sure that we have standing? There are all kinds of great resources, articles, and working groups. You can meet people from across the country. So those are the two great places I would go.
Okay. All right. And you'll have to. You do have my email address, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I
So
do.
if you'll send me that information plus the book that you were showing earlier,
Oh, will do.
uh,
Yeah.
I'd like to get that information. And sorry that sorry that Andrea wasn't with us as much, but like you said, I will get her on again and
Well, she's the
just
power behind the throne here. So she was the initiator of Tennessee Fair Elections, and she's done a great job.
well, I mean, like I said, after watching y'all on the Patriot Punk Network, I just knew I had to, you know, get in touch with y'all and see about coming on with Memphis, because I know y'all have friends here with Sherry and Kenny Pyron doing everything that they can do, pushing Monty's deal in Shelby County. And so, uh, I guess with that, I appreciate you being here,
Thank you.
and we'll get together again.
Thank you. God bless you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You as well.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye. Bye.
All right, let me get rid of that. Let's see. I'm sitting here stumbling around. There's a lot of things. Those 5 bills, none of them got passed, and all of them were killed by the General Assembly. And, I don't know. The Democrats don't seem to have that much of, play in Nashville. It's all Republicans. It's all Republicans, and they're not doing anything for us. Simple bills that would just make the people happy, and they're not doing it. One last time, if you want some of the best meat, best hamburger beef, fillets, we get the fillets. Check this place out. They are at the corner of State Line Road and Getwell, I believe. State Line Road and Getwell? No. Malone. Look them up on Facebook. But we've had the beef. We've had their Berkshire pork. We've had the fillets numerous times. We've had their eggs. And the chicken comes from Riley's Family Farms down in Mississippi. So check them out. They're open tomorrow, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And they're closed on Sundays and Mondays. Check them out. Y'all have a good evening. Appreciate y'all being here. And we'll do it again next week. Y'all take care.